My name is Judy Hills. I'm the president of the Friends of North Carolina Public Libraries and the vice president of the Friends of the New Bern-Craven County Public Libraries. So, why would a library want a Friends group? It provides a mechanism to overcome the limitations. For example, some foundations will only allow a 501c3 organization to apply for funds, provides a non-traditional source of support, allows the library to segregate funds which might otherwise end up in the government's general account funds. It's a mechanism to avoid bureaucratic procedures and governmental imposed restrictions such as purchasing decisions, provides a link to resources in the community, provides support for various library initiatives and projects, and in some cases it provides a wide array of volunteer assistance. Does every library need or want a Friends group? No. We're aware of a library system that made a conscious choice a long time ago not to have any friends, and that is still the case today. We are aware of one very large library that had a Friends group for many years and now has determined the library has outgrown the need. This is certainly legitimate. The library manager might have had a bad prior experience with Friends and is prejudiced against them. The library may have a foundation or some other organization that provides the support that might be otherwise provided by Friends, and there could be many other reasons for this. So, what is the purpose of a Friends group? Two things define purpose: bylaws and mission statement. The bylaws and mission statement are usually included with the filing of the Articles of Incorporation with the state and the 501c3 paperwork to the IRS. Bylaws and mission statement should include a statement of supporting one or more libraries, and that support might be financial, political, or cultural. The bylaws and mission statements may include things like developing and supporting a community of readers and lifelong learners, promoting literacy and encouraging the love of books, contributing to the cultural enrichment of the community, making distributions to organizations that qualify as exempt organizations, awarding grants to libraries and community organizations, and making expenditures to benefit the library directly or indirectly. The bylaws and mission statements to the nonprofit are key to how they may spend their money. These are statements that I pulled from various Friends bylaws and mission statements, and there are undoubtedly many more. Money spent on literacy and reading projects and programs with or without community partners indirectly benefit the library, because if we don't grow a community of readers, the library is not going to have future community support. Friends also need to develop relationships with other nonprofits. They don't operate in a vacuum within a community. They may be asked to financially contribute to a project, and as long as it aligns with their bylaws or mission, it's a legitimate use of funds. Friends should always ask themselves regarding projects and spending, does this fit with our bylaws and our mission? So how are the Friends structured? How they are structured makes a difference in their legal status. The ways to structure: they could be unstructured or informal, a loose-knit group with no legal standing. I bring this up because in 2021 we researched Friends groups in North Carolina and their legal status. We were unable to find legal status for 18% of the groups. Nonprofit registered or incorporated with the state, and it could be a nonprofit recognized by the IRS as a 501c3. Those with legal status have rules and guidelines they must follow to retain that status. Those without legal status may be at risk, as most, if not all, states have laws governing charitable solicitation, and North Carolina does. There are some limited protections for an incorporated nonprofit's officers, directors, and members against organizational debts and liabilities. Donors may not be able to take a tax donation if the Friends are not a 501c3 nonprofit. So, how are your Friends structured? So how do library and Friends work together? Friends are structured as a separate organization and have state and federal guidelines they must follow to protect their legal nonprofit status. Again, the use of Friends funds must align with their bylaws and mission statement, or they're out of compliance with their legal status. Libraries cannot legally dictate to nonprofits or Friends how they spend their funds. Libraries themselves, their trustees, if any, and their foundations, if any, all have their respective roles in fundraising for the library, and the presence of a friends group does not in any way negate those responsibilities. Elements of the library and friends relationship that need clarification and understanding, there are three of those. The first is the development or fundraising functions for which the friends are responsible. The second is the scope of the Friends service within the organization, and the third is the degree of integration in the priorities of the Friends and the library. So, armed with these understanding, the library and the Friends can jointly develop a memorandum of understanding. Now, MOUs are not required, but sometimes they help clarify roles. So what are the degree of autonomy of Friends? It ranges from extreme or bureaucratic control to complete independence. Issues with a high degree of oversight and control of Friends by the library, while it may be satisfactory to the library, it seriously limits the Friends' effectiveness. It limits the group's ability to attract quality board members. It prevents the Friends board from exercising their fiduciary responsibility, and it jeopardizes the tax-exempt status of the group. Issues with too much independence of the Friends, while it might be satisfactory to the Friends, it might cause animosity, distrust, and a lack of communication. Groups at either end of this spectrum may become dysfunctional. Now, it's entirely possible to have groups at either end of the spectrum that function perfectly. For example, we're aware of some Friends group where the library staff performs many of the functions normally assigned to officers. This would be a highly bureaucratic situation, but they do it because the Friends Board is weak and the organization would fall completely apart if they did not do so. We're also aware of groups with a high degree of independence that function superbly with their library because of the experience of the Friends Board and the excellent relationship they have with library management and staff. So what is an MOU and why is it needed? It's a written agreement that sets forth the principles and guidelines under which the parties promise to meet stated standards or goals. It's less formal than a contract. It's a statement of commitments giving consideration to the missions of both distinct groups. United for Libraries strongly recommends MOUs so that, quote, as players change, the commitment from the library and the Friends stay stable. Put in writing respective roles, responsibilities, and physical relationships. Some recommend it be reviewed annually, others that it be reviewed as parties change. In a previous presentation of this material, one participant asked if we recommended that an MOU be reviewed by an attorney. An MOU is not a contract, nor is it very complex, so we do not advise involving attorneys unless you are forced to do so. Who are the parties to an MOU? In addition to the Friends, the parties might include the local government that's concerned, the county, the municipality, the regional library, the library board of trustees, but only if they have legal authority and are not just advisory. And most library boards in North Carolina are just advisory. Regional Library Board of Trustees if the library in question is part of one, the Regional Library Director if the regional library system, and the Library Director, Administrator, or Manager, whatever that individual's title might be in your system. So what should an MOU minimally contain? An introductory section naming the parties to the agreement with the names and contact information, a statement that the Friends are a separate entity from the library, a statement on how the library administration will include the Friends in the library's planning process and vice versa, a plan for regular communication, a broad statement on how funds raised on behalf of the library will be distributed, an agreement that the Friends will publicly support library policies and advocate on behalf of the library, a statement as to who will have the say on accepting or declining gifts to the library, a statement that the Friends will maintain their nonprofit status by complying with state, federal rules and guidelines, and a secession plan should the Friends become inactive. So other observations and issues, MOUs are not required for library and Friends to function well together. They may be required by the entity that provides the primary funding to the library. For example, we were aware of a county that pulled out from being in a regional library system and set up a standalone county system. There were a number of libraries with Friends Group under the regional library that had not had MOUs with their libraries. The county manager demanded that every Friends Group have an MOU with their library. More often than not, if there are relationship issues, they are promulgated by personalities rather than elements of the MOU, although we will say that the greatest single MOU issue causing problems is the one about how the Friends' money is spent. Groups may prefer the informality of a guidance document rather than a more formal MOU, and in order to function consistently, written guidelines are helpful both to friends and staff. We do recommend some written guidance for consistency. The published most frequent reason for friends getting off track, these are statements made by librarian and were noted in the article When Friends Go Rogue. Friends believe that because they raise the money, they should decide how it's spent. Yes, absolutely. Friends do decide how their nonprofit spends the money they raised, as long as it's in accordance with their bylaws and mission statement. Friends withhold money for which the library has a legitimate need. Okay, well, while the library may have a legitimate need, the Friends do have a right to determine if that's how they want to spend their funds they control. For example, what if the library's legitimate need was to resurface their parking lot? The Friends' bylaws and mission statement states they support reading and literacy. Maybe the Friends don't happen to agree that asphalt is a better use of their funds than books or computers. Of course, the decision may have gone the other way if the president of the Friends' car had to be repaired because it hit a hole in the library parking lot. Friends groups give funds raised to organizations or initiatives outside the library. They most certainly can do that. Again, if the expenditure fits with their bylaws and mission statement. Friends become clubbish and follow their own agenda. Friends officers don't turn over. They begin to think the money raised as their own. The last two statements seem to have more to do with the personality of the individual on the Friends board. This is an issue for the Friends membership to address, not the library. They elect their leaders and empower them to make decisions on behalf of the organization. Other serious issues we've heard, friends expecting or demanding special privileges or services from library staff. Friends, regarding special privileges, one NC Friends group reached out to us recently for advice. The library's internal auditor pointed out that it was inappropriate for the library staff to be selling items and collecting money for the Friends, even though the funds were not commingled with the library. Friends not sharing or publicizing organizational data such as minutes, reports, financial statements, a lack of transparency. We really, really believe that Friends should be transparent. You are taking public money and you do need to be accountable for that. Friends are ineffective at fundraising, Friends group is stagnant, and maybe their operations are behind in the use of technology and social media. Regarding the use of technology by Friends, in a study I mentioned earlier, we found that 28% of the groups did not have even one email address that we could identify. Very hard to get hold of a Friends group if you don't have an email address in today's environment. And suffice it to say that some concerns are legitimate and that Friends should address them. So, on the other hand, serious issues that Friends have with libraries, the libraries dictate to the Friends how Friends funds should be spent. Libraries cannot legally control or dictate to the Friends how the organization's funds are spent. Libraries exclude Friends from meaningful involvement in programming and organizational development and then get upset when the Friends don't support that decision. Friends have a legitimate concern that Friends funding is used to supplant instead of supplement the library's funding. This is a concept that Friends need to clearly understand, the difference between supplanting and supplementing. There's no accountability and feedback to the Friends on how the money they gave the library ends up being spent. Funding provided by the Friends should be clearly identifiable on the library's budget so that the Friends can be assured that the money they gave was used as intended. This is their fiduciary responsibility to their donors. For example, if the Friends gave the library a $1,000 check to purchase a computer and the money was instead spent on new library office chairs for the staff, this may end up being an audit exception for the library. So, best practice advice. If negotiating an MOU for the first time, find a model that both groups can agree on and use it as a starting point. Keep the points as general as possible because things do change. Libraries should give Friends their wish list for things to be funded a month or so before the start of the Friends' new fiscal year. We say this because the Friends' fiscal year is probably going to be different from the library's. The library's fiscal year is July 1 to June 30. Friends should do everything possible to reduce their dependence or impact on the library staff. They should be managing their own websites, selling their own books, products, and tickets, handling donated books, have a separate mailing address, and so on. Friends are nonprofits and should be transparent regarding their operations and finances. They have fiduciary responsibility to donors to account for funds, and they should develop a good rapport between the Friends Board and library management. And if you get nothing else out of this presentation today, just remember you do have to have a working relationship, MOU or not. So, best practice advice for Friends funds. Friends do need money to manage their organization, to recruit, retain, and recognize members, for upfront expenses for certain things, for ongoing expenses, for things like book sales, to capitalize on opportunity. Let's say a new grant pops up and it requires a cash match, or requires funds be spent and then reimbursed rather than the funds being given in advance. If they didn't have the money, then they couldn't do the grant. To carry the organization through lean times like COVID, that's sort of akin to a reserve or savings fund. To celebrate special occasions, and to celebrate or thank the library staff, again within the confines of any requirements that the library may have about this. Friends provide funds to the library they serve for purchases, for expenses related to programs, and for expenses related to various projects. Friends may or may not fund things that supplant rather than supplement the library's budget. These are things like repairs, renovations, cleaning. Doesn't mean you can't, but you need to seriously think about this subject. Friends may fund their own projects that align with their bylaws or mission statement. I've listed a few things here. Can be any number of other things as well. Friends may provide funds to another organization. They could co-host a sponsor, a workshop, or a speaker on literacy, reading, freedom to read, could share a booth at a community event. If someone in the community gives the Friends a donation and specifies that the money has to be spent in a certain way, like, for example, books for the children's library, the Friends are obligated to ensure that those funds are used for that specific purpose. This is called donor intent. If members are concerned about how the board spends or doesn't spend the organization's funds, the bylaws generally have a clause about a called special meeting where this can be discussed. It's up to the members, not outsiders, to bring this up. So here's some thoughts on how to build relationships. In the spring of 2021, the Friends of North Carolina Public Library did a virtual workshop and posted the presentations on our YouTube channel. The most viewed presentation was Smoothing Rocky Relationships. So we can assume that this is not an uncommon problem between friends and libraries. That presentation, by the way, can still be viewed on our website. Relationships need to be built when a new library manager comes on board, especially if that individual is not promoted from within. This is an opportunity to set the tone and to begin again. We've listed some ideas here on how to build relationships. It's best to identify early on when something's amiss and tackle it then rather than waiting. The longer an issue persists, the harder it will be to get back on track. And if personalities are clashing, one possible intervention would be to take the problem individual out of the equation. Easier said than done, of course, especially if it's the library manager or the president of the Friends. So, if there are issues, an MOU will not ensure cooperation if there are personalities are involved. No piece of paper ever solved the problem. Neither party can force the other to comply with an MOU. Threatening legal action to disassociate the library from the Friends is a zero-sum game. No good will come of it. We have seen situations where legal action has been threatened against the Friends by the libraries and by the government. A lot of bad press ensued and the damage done was irreparable. There are no winners in that circumstance. It behooves both parties to work together for the benefit of the whole. And if you need help sorting out a skirmish before it becomes a war, we suggest you seek the mediation assistance of the State Library or the Friends of the North Carolina Public Libraries or some other independent source. And we hope that these mediators will be objective in assessing the issues and not take sides. So we hope you found this presentation balanced, as at times there are legitimate issues on both sides. We continue to stress that a good working relationship needs to exist between library management and the Friends Board, MOU or not. And that's just the thought that we would leave you with today. I've listed a few resources on the next slide. If you have a question, please feel free to contact us. Thanks again for taking the time to view this presentation today, and good luck.